So recently got back from 2 weeks of sailing in Greece, one trip out of Athens, one trip out of Corfu in Western Greece, and just want to tell you what I learned and what we're thinking about in terms of Greece. Welcome to What Could Go Right, a podcast about living boldly on and off the water. I'm Eric Orton.
I'm Emily Orton. On this podcast, we explore adventure, connection, and stepping into a more intentional life. And we don't just talk about it. We invite you to join us on guided sailing trips around the world.
And if you stick around to the end, you'll hear our sailing update where we share where we're going, when, and which trips still have space. And you'll hear a sailing takeaway from somebody who's already come on a trip with us. In 2014, we bootstrapped a year on a fixer-upper sailboat with our 5 kids. We wrote a book about it called 7 at Sea, and that became a New York Times top 10 travel book.
Let's dive in.
True.
Okay, great. So Greece is a place that we've gone back to over and over again.
Mhm.
It's such a great place for a beginning sail. It's got all the history, all the culture, all the food, and also great sailing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you tell about where we go when we come out of Athens?
Yeah, well, first I'll just say, don't we have another episode about Greece?
Yeah, it's about how Greece, episode 161, why Greece
Yeah.
is a great place for beginners to go. So
Yeah, so you can listen to that one, and maybe we'll repeat. I don't know exactly what we said in that episode, but I'll just reiterate that, yeah, it's a great place to sail. We go back there for good reason. And so we were there for 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks. And the first trip was with a group that we had put together. And the second week, that was in Athens. And then the second week was with a private trip, a family that wanted to do a special trip out of Corfu, which is Western Greece. And so I guess we'll just start with Athens.
why do you love to sail the Saronic Islands and speak to this idea? How is it that you can keep going to the same place over and over again? And what makes it still adventurous?
Okay, sure. So I'll just speak to myself for a second. First of all, one of the things that makes every trip interesting for me is it's a different group of people, and I get to teach every time. I feel a little bit like a second grade teacher, where I hope this doesn't come across as condescending, but every year a second grade teacher gets a class and gets to watch them discover all the things that second graders discover. Pick whatever grade you have, but to watch somebody figure out math or reading or a musical instrument or anything that you can teach as a teacher, there's a delight and a joy in watching people experience and discover something new. And so that's something that sort of continues to feed me and keeps giving me energy, which I love. However, I've been going to some places for years and years and years. And we actually lived in Athens for a few months on a boat with some friends and have spent a lot of time there. And what I find that is when we go back to these places, yes, I'm going to places that are familiar to me. And that's part of the gig. It's like saying, hey, I know the way. I'm the guide. I'm going to show you. I'm going to make it easy for you. And some of that is just knowing the ins and outs of getting a boat and organizing the food with you and everyone else on our team and just making that part easy. And some of it is, hey, when we get to this spot, I can recommend where we go or what we do. And so I would say on this trip, at least 50% of it were spots that I had been to before. And again, it's fun to go there and watch other people discover it. And there's also endless opportunities to discover new places. We're anchoring in places that I haven't been before or looking into little town docks that I haven't been to before. In one case, okay, so I'll just sort of quick story. I get to the base, we check in, I'm sitting down with the base manager and he knows that I've sailed there before. And so we're talking about where I might want to go. And actually, I'm going to go back even further. Okay. I land in Athens and I purposefully wanted to go to this other town southeast of Athens because there are charter bases there that I am interested in. And you can launch from there into other areas that I haven't been to before. So I just wanted to go check them out first, scout it out. And so I spent my first night in that town and was able to see it's a beautiful little town. They've got plenty of good boats. They had just done some big 600-mile sailing regatta race thing out of there all around the Saronic Islands and back. And so lots of boats, lots of good boats. And I was looking at the islands that you can access from that point. Okay, yeah. So I went to that place and the town is great. Then I went to Athens and I'm talking with the base manager and I was like, hey, tell me about these other islands that are further kind of east and south of here. And he showed me pictures and I was like, oh my goodness. That's one of my afflictions in this job is that I keep seeing more islands that can be explored, sailed to, discovered. And, in a week's time with a boat that moves somewhere between 5 to 12 miles per hour, you sort of have a limited radius of how much you can see and still, without just putting the pedal to the metal and just constantly sailing the whole time, which is not what we aim to do.
See and enjoy.
Yeah. How far can we sail and still enjoy ourselves? Because the goal is not to sail 10 hours a day and drop anchor just as the sun is falling and then eat something and then fall asleep and then wake up and sail again. That's not what we do.
No, you like sleep in, play in the water, have breakfast, go for a sail to learn the ropes and the sails, and then drop anchor in another place where you can sleep, play in the water, read a book, check out the town, and then lunch, and then maybe a little more sailing till you drop anchor where you're like, now we're going to like explore this area. Yeah, really savoring it.
Yeah, there's a lot of leisure in our trips, a lot of leisure.
Mhm.
And so anyway, I looked at all these islands. They're called the Cyclade Islands, Syclade, I think. And they just look gorgeous, really remote, white cliffs, but also, not a lot less civilization, fewer towns, fewer restaurants, things like that. And so anyway, I talked about it with our group and I was like, hey, we've got some options. And, here are the trade-offs of the number of hours spent sailing
out of Athens.
Going back to sailing out of Athens, I was like, hey, we could jump over and sail these Cyclade Islands, but it's going to be a big kind of a larger crossing and we'll have to spend more time underway. And in the end, we all loved the idea of going there sometime, but not on this trip. Mm-hmm. We decided to stick to our original plan, sail the Saronic Islands, and I'll tell a little bit about that. But I'll just say that it's sort of, you and I sometimes refer to it as mission creep. Like you go out and you're like, hey, while I'm out at the grocery store, I'm going to go return this library book. And then I'm also going to drop off this t-shirt that somebody left at my house, leave it on their porch. And
or send this package back to Amazon.
Yeah, kind of like, hey, while I'm out, I'm going to do this. Oh, and then I'll do that. So, when I get to Greece and I go sailing, I'm like, oh, but that over there looks pretty cool. Let me go check that out. Or, So anyway, I have a personal interest in doing a trip out to the Cyclade Islands in the future. So if that sounds like fun to you, drop me a line. Happy to talk about when and when that might be.
And that would actually make a lot more sense if you were departing from the marina that's in a different location. It wouldn't be such a long crossing to get to the Cyclades as if you were coming from Athens. And that would, make the trip a whole different thing. And I guess I just love this idea that no matter how many times you've been there, there's still so much to discover and explore. And I liked what you said. Like when I go out with these groups, I'm usually hitting about 50% of the places are the same. And 50% of it, like, you're familiar with the territory and the expectations as a captain, but it might be a new location, new restaurant, new view, new snorkel spot, whatever it might be. And I know for me, like you talked about how we spent quite a bit of time in Greece. There's still like so much to explore. And on this last trip, something new that you did, I think you stopped at Aegina and did cliff jumping. Most of what we might see or do on a trip would be a brand new adventure. So if you've come before and you liked it, you could come again and it wouldn't be like hitting repeat on this trip you had the first time.
Yeah. Although I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised. There's a guy who sailed with me last year and he rebooked the exact same trip this year.
There you go.
So
he's going to have a different experience, but he'll know he's with you.
For sure. And then he's coming on a third trip with his wife early next year. So anyway.
So that's about Athens and maybe some areas that you want to explore and try next in Greece. But do you want to talk to us a little bit about Corfu?
Yeah, I'll say, okay, I'm going to get to Corfu, and this is sort of an overview of Greece in general. People will say, oh, I want to go sail the Greek Isles. And I'm like, okay, that is massive.
Just frame it for us.
Yeah, that's massive. And I was in the chart room with the base manager, and we were kind of looking at the map of all of Greece. And there are, depending on how you parse it out, there's 6 to 7 major sailing regions in the country of Greece. Mm-hmm. And there's the Saronic Gulf, which we've sailed a couple times. There's the Cyclade Islands, which we've just talked about. And there's other regions that are further east over, you get closer to Turkey. You can go further north up to near, I don't even know what the area is called, but it's nearer to Thessalonica or Thessaloniki. And then out in western Greece, you've got Corfu, which is kind of the most northern western part of Greece, right on the border with Albania. And then below that, you've got an area called Lefkas or Lefkada, depending on which pronunciation you want to use. And so if somebody says, hey, I want to go sail the Greek islands, oftentimes they say, oh, I want to go to Mykonos and Santorini because that's what's on all of the calendars or all the cruise ship itineraries. And that's a very specific part of Greece. And it's also a very crowded part of Greece. And it's one that's not, the cruise ships have kind of taken it over. And so,
it's more like cruise ship Greece.
Yeah. But, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, we have yet to do a trip there. But to say, I want to sail the Greek Isles, that's like saying, I want to take 2 years if you want to kind of hit everything. There's just so much.
Similar to the Bahamas, where you're like, I want to sail the Bahamas. And when we lived on our sailboat for a year, we spent a few weeks coming up through the Bahamas, but then we rented our boat to another family. They spent 6 months literally only in the Bahamas, and they just couldn't get to everything.
Yeah, there's 800 islands in the Bahamas.
There's always going to be more to discover.
So Corfu, I think we found out about Corfu, funnily enough. Do we still say that?
Hey, you're saying it.
Okay.
It's
so when we were writing Seven at Sea, our agent told us, our literary agent, she said, your book reminds me of the Durrells of Corfu. And I was like, first of all, I don't know what a Durrell is, and I don't know what or where Corfu is. So we had to look it up on a map. And the Durrells of Corfu is a book by a British woman where she talks about how they hit a rough patch financially in their family, and they decided to leave England and go to Corfu because it was affordable and warm, and they just needed a place to sort of financially recover. And they bought this dilapidated, rundown villa and sort of fixed it up over the years. And the book is it's a little bit Robinson Crusoe and a little bit, but sort of like family adventure on a not deserted island.
And funny.
Really
funny.
There's a lot.
Robinson Crusoe, I don't think is funny, but this was like just charming foibles of this family culture clashing or like raising children in this more wild environment.
And I think it might have been one of the sons that wrote it, regardless of the author. So I was like, I've never even heard of this place. And Netflix has conveniently made a series out of it.
A delightful series, yeah.
So you can read the book you can read the book or check out the series. And so I was interested because our story was being compared to their story. I was like, let's go check this out. Anyway, so a couple of years ago, I was doing a trip in Greece and decided to road trip from Athens over to Western Greece and check out these other regions. And I got to drive around Corfu and see the area, and then drove around Lefkos, which is further south. And we'd sailed through, I'm blanking on the name of the island. Anyway, when we helped our friends sail their boat, we passed through this Lefkadis area south of there. Anyway, I'd been there on land and had never been there on the water. And so this was a first time for me, but this trip was pretty special because there was a mom who had lived on the island of Corfu and Paxos, which is just south of that, in her 20s, and wanted to sort of go back and share this with her kids and her family. And so it was a very special trip. With a
nostalgic trip.
Yeah, with a specific request for this destination. And so I was going into an area that I didn't know specifically, but, knew we could figure it out. And we ended up having a fabulous week and discovered beautiful anchorages, beautiful towns, fantastic restaurants with views over the bay and the beach. And actually on our last night, went to go see the Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey with Matt Damon in Greece, in the town of Corfu. And so it was just a fun trip. And I guess, just a reminder to me that, I will admit this, as a skipper, there are certain challenges that I have going into a place that I've never been before. I have to figure out sort of the procedures and protocols for coming into a marina, and some of those can be fairly specific, or, you have to have a reservation here, or this one they charge you, or this one they don't, for anchorages. And so there's some things that it's nice for me to, if I'm familiar with the area, but I'm game for something new and figuring out a new spot. And so this was, to a certain extent, all figuring it out just because I'd seen it from land, which is a good start, but not the same as really being out there on the water. And we had a great week. And so to your point from earlier on, it's really just a reminder that there's still so much to discover. We can go to new places. We can go back to familiar places and sort of go, peel that onion, so to speak. We can go deeper into the layers and with an element of familiarity, but with plenty yet to explore. And then we can also just jump into all new places and figure it out from the ground up.
Yeah, that was a great overview of the recent trip to Athens and Corfu. And we just love to keep you updated about where we've been, how it's going, what we're learning, and see if there's anything here that's a match for you. If you like what you hear, click a link below and connect to find out if there's a fit for you. Always more to discover.
So true. What could go right? Hey there, this is Eric. Before we wrap up, I just want to give you the sailing update. We are heading into our 2027 season. As of this moment for 2026, we do have one solo spot on our Norway trip in 2026. That's September 3 through 10th in Norway. It's going to be an epic, beautiful sail in the Lofoten Islands. And then we've also got one solo female spot on our Bahamas trip in November the 9th through the 14th. And that's going to be in the Abacos northern part of the Bahamas. So those are the only two spots that we have left in 2026. Otherwise, 2026 is sold out. If there's any trip you want to jump on, you can join the wait list. But 2027, here's what we have going on. January 25th through the 30th, we're going to be in the Virgin Islands. That trip is also sold out, but we might open up another one in that same month or February. So if you want to go sailing this winter in the Virgin Islands, you can join the wait list for that. Just ping us and we'll send you the link to join that. In the Bahamas, March 1st through 6th, we're going to be in the Bahamas. It will most likely be in the Exumas, which is the southern part of the Bahamas, sailing out of Nassau. April 5 through 10, we're going to be in Mexico. La Paz, beautiful, stunning snorkeling, sailing, one of my favorite spots. So Mexico, April 5 through 10. May 1st through 8th, we are going to be in Tahiti and Bora Bora. The plan is to do a one-way sail from an island just off of Tahiti called Raiatea. Then we're going to sail the boat to Bora Bora, which is kind of like that iconic lagoon with those bungalows out over the water. Anyway, that's May 1st through the 8th. Then that's the end of our spring season, winter and spring, and we come over here to Europe. June 5 through 12th, we will be in Italy. And July 10th through the 17th, we will be in Greece. August 7th through the 14th, we'll be in Croatia. September 4th through the 11th, we'll be back in Italy. September 18th through the 25th, we'll be in Greece. These are our shoulder season trips. And then in November, we head back to the Virgin Islands, November 1 through 6, the British Virgin Islands. And then December 6th through the 11th, we'll be back in the Bahamas. So that is the 2027 lineup, the 2 empty spots for 2026. And if you want to join us for any of these, just hit reply to any one of our emails. You can DM us or contact us through social media, and would love to hear from you and see if this might be a fit for you. Would love to welcome you aboard.
We can talk about trips all day, but it's more fun to hear from someone who's been aboard. Here's a recent guest takeaway.
All right, my man, Lenny. So
Testing 1, 2, 3. Is this thing on?
Yeah, it's definitely on.
Don't rub your nose with it.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So what made you want to come, Lenny?
You. Actually, Eric was definitely one of the reasons I chose to come, because I've known him for a long time. We're buds, and he's been with me on some of my most meaningful spiritual quests. And I just wanted to share time with him, and also share time with my wife, because we needed a getaway. We wanted to get away. We talked about how we were going to do this and who we were going to do this with and when we were going to do it. And just like all things that turn out right, it was such a spontaneous happening.
During sushi.
Yeah, we were having sushi, and all of a sudden, Eric FaceTimes me. He says, "Eric, what's up? We're having sushi." He says, "Well, I have an opening. You want to come to the Greek islands? We're leaving next week." And we were just talking about
sailing.
a trip, right?
Seriously?
Yeah.
At the sushi night?
Yeah.
At the sushi night.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I says, "Let me call you back. I'll call you back, and it'll be soon." So we're talking. We're eating sushi, and
One roll later.
I think one roll later, it's like, "Come on, we just talked about a trip. And we worked it out how the kids were going to take care of themselves, and they're okay alone. They were okay like 4 days alone. A week is okay. They're going to love it. You got your parents as a backup." And so an hour later, we called up Eric and says, "Yeah, we're in."
We're in. That's right.
There were definitely some concerns. There were kids' concerns, as we have 2 special need kids. Setting them up for a week was definitely a concern. Oh, a pleasant surprise. I mean, everything was a pleasant surprise. I mean, you're always, I'm always skeptical going into a commitment with with total strangers. So there was that, would I connect and gel with everyone, right? Would be any issues or any problems, and there weren't any. Minor things that as intelligent, feeling adults were easily dealt with. And the most important thing is that everyone was out for a good time. I mean, every day I had fun doing stuff. It was just great. So my recommendation to anyone who wants to do this, do it. I think it's important for couples to do this. It's important for couples to get away, thrust themselves into a completely different situation, with the number one thing of having a good time and sharing time with your spouse and with other people who want to do the same thing. Whether it's here on this boat with Eric or hiking to Mont Blanc, every couple should do stuff like this. It's a growth experience.